Police arrest 4 civil servants in connection with dubious vaccination exemption certificates. Health officials issue warning over the risk of flu in winter. Cathay Pacific in recruitment drive in preparation for more flights. Hello and welcome to TVB News. For the first time, the police have arrested 4 people on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud for allegedly buying dubious vaccination exemption certificates. The arrests involve 4 civil servants, and they all allegedly bought the certificates from earlier arrested doctors. Jackie Lin reports.
So far, some 7 doctors have either been arrested or are wanted by the police on suspicion of signing off false vaccination exemption certificates. On Friday morning, police arrested 4 women aged between 25 and 48 in Tinshuiwai, Shatin, Kuntong, and Henghang. 3 of them work at the Department of Social Welfare and 1 is a teacher at a government school. Each allegedly bought 2 to 3 suspected false jab exemption certificates. They were issued by 6 doctors currently under police investigation, and each certificate cost between $500 and $2,500.
我哋係審視過所有嘅證據嘅。
Alan Chong, Superintendent of Crime Operation, Kowloon West Regional Headquarters, highlights the lack of responsibility of the teacher involved, who might have subjected her young pupils to more health risks. A similar case for an arrested government worker who frequently comes into contact with the elderly, Chong added. But Chong says as the arrested doctors allegedly issued some 20,000 exemption certificates, it doesn't mean all the certificate holders have violated the law. And it doesn't matter whether they're civil servants, principal officials, or just normal citizens. Chong says the force will scrutinize various factors, including people's medical records, with assessments from medical experts. So far, the police have arrested 26 alleged buyers of false jabs exemption certificates. More investigations are underway in cooperation with the Department of Justice and the Department of Health. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Health authorities today warned that people could be infected with COVID-19 and flu at the same time this winter. They called on Hong Kongers to get vaccinated against the flu to prevent from developing serious medical complications if they come down with both viruses. Meanwhile, the city reported 4,369 new COVID infections, a slight increase from yesterday. There were 386 imported cases. Christy Khan reports.
The Center for Health Protection today said in a press briefing that people should receive flu shots before the winter, citing the influenza activity will become more active again.
The general immunity against influenza among the general populations has also decreased due to we do not encounter any influenza cases in the past 2 to 3 years. So this is one thing that we are worrying.
Health officials expected that more influenza cases would be brought into Hong Kong through travelers and overseas returnees. Hence, they predicted there could be a higher possibility that influenza cases could be reintroduced to the local community. Although Hong Kong did not report many cases of COVID-19 and flu co-infection over the past years, health authorities warned the situation might have changed this year. Meanwhile, health officials said Hong Kong's COVID situation has plateaued according to their recent assessments. But they still need more time to observe whether the city's infection number will drop further.
From early September to late September, we see a continued decreasing trend. But however, this decreasing trend has stopped in the past 2 weeks. One of the reasons for this trend might be the general population has waning immunity. As time goes by, their immunity acquired from previous infection has been decreasing.
The authorities noted that there have been COVID rebound in some countries recently. A new variant BA.275 had caused a jump in the daily infection tally in Singapore. Health officials said they will continue to monitor the situation in Hong Kong. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Hong Kong flag carrier Cathay Pacific has started a mass hiring campaign for the first time since the start of the pandemic. The airline said many have responded to the recruitment call and pointed out its target of hiring 2,000 new employees. Timothy Lee spoke with some applicants today at one of Cathay's recruitment events.
A sea of new faces ready to serve in your next flight's cabin crew, as Cathay Pacific's Flight Attendant Recruitment Day is underway both today and tomorrow at Cordis Hotel in Mongkok. In total, 200 interview sessions will be held over these 2 days. Some of the airline's requirements for applicants include a minimum pass rate in 5 HKDSE subjects, including English, and a permanent Hong Kong resident status. Cathay Pacific will also prioritize applicants who have previous experience in the airline, hospitality, or service industries. The airline said that expected monthly take-home pay for a basic cabin crew member who operates a full roster of 90 block hours is about $17,000, including outport-related allowances and productivity pay.
It's my dream, one of my dreams. I wanted to try one more time, because the last time I applied this position, it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited. I've waited for 3 years trying to apply for this because when I graduated, it was COVID, so I wasn't able to come back and apply for this. And finally, they finally hired, so I decided to come back.
Cathay said its goal is to recruit more than 4,000 frontline employees in the next 2 years.
And the recruitment campaign will carry on. It's not just these 2 days. We will carry on, as said. In the next 18 to 24 months, we expect to recruit more than 2,000 of cabin crew.
We are confident that we have the sufficient manpower to operate the current level of flying. We've already announced that by the end of this year, we'll be flying at around a third of our passenger capacity and 2/3 of our cargo capacity when compared to the pre-pandemic days.
The airline said it has already added around 400 flights between the city and popular tourist destinations, including Japan and Thailand, since the announcement of the 0+3 quarantine measure. With over 1,000 applicants prepared to join Cathay Pacific, the airline believes it is set to fly thousands of Hong Kongers around the world again. Cathay said those who arrive today will receive the results as early as 6 weeks later. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Urban Renewal Authority kickstarted 2 redevelopment projects for To Kwa Wan that could generate more than 2,200 new housing units. They cover more than 20,000 square meters on Ming Lun Street and Ma Tau Kok Road, as well as To Kwa Wan Road and Ma Tau Kok Road. The plan, currently covering tenements and industrial buildings, would affect some 1,500 residents and 190 business tenants. The URA admits there could be some difficulties with the redevelopment work, as it involves industrial buildings, which are usually more difficult to acquire. The body therefore expects it could cost more than $10 billion to buy up all the properties on the sites. The housing projects are expected to be completed by 2033. Edmond Juan, the host of D1000 Radio, also known as Gigs, has been sentenced to 32 months behind bars on sedition and money laundering related charges. The 54-year-old was said to have made inflammatory remarks on his online radio program back in 2020, and also to have laundered more than $10 million. Altogether, he was charged with 10 counts of incitement and money laundering related offenses. Earlier, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of committing an act with seditious intent and 3 counts of money laundering. A district court judge says his program is widely circulated, and Juan's remarks not only exacerbated the social unrest, but he continued to challenge the law after the national security legislation came into effect. The court also ordered the seizure of some $4.87 million as Juan's proceeds of crime. Juan has to pay them up within 6 months or face an additional 5 years in prison. The 47-member United Nations Human Rights Council voted down a Western-led motion to hold a debate about alleged human rights abuses by China in Xinjiang province. Daniel Rell tells us more.
It is regarded as a close diplomatic victory for China. The US, Britain and mostly Western countries had proposed to hold a debate on alleged human rights abuses by China against Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang in the United Nations Human Rights Council. But the proposal was defeated with 19 against, 17 for and 11 abstentions. The no votes came from China's allies, as well as African countries and Persian Gulf states. It is just the second time in the 16-year history of the UN Human Rights Council that a motion has been rejected. The motion was also the first time that the rights record of China, a permanent Security Council member, has been on the Council's agenda. This came after the Rights Office released a report alleging serious human rights violations against Muslim minorities in the Xinjiang region. Beijing firmly denied the accusations. China's envoy Chen Zhu said today China is targeted, tomorrow any other developing country will be targeted, adding that a debate would lead to new confrontations. Chen also accused Western countries of seeking to turn a blind eye to their own issues on human rights and pointing a finger at others. Michelle Taylor, the US ambassador, said no country has a perfect human rights record, including the United States, and it also includes China. Daniel Roll, TVB News.
The U.S. Defense Department has added 13 more Chinese companies, including drone maker DJI, to a blacklist that subjects them to an investment ban for Americans. Besides DJI Technology, surveillance equipment maker Xinjiang Dahua Technology is also targeted. Others included on the list released by the Pentagon are BGI Genomics Company Limited, which has DNA sequencing contracts globally, and CRRC Corporation, which engages in the manufacture and sale of rail transit equipment. The list bars Americans from buying or selling publicly traded securities in the targeted companies. The Pentagon said it seeks to highlight and counter what it called China's military-civil fusion strategy. And coming up after the break, Nobel Peace Prize is awarded to jailed Belarus rights activists, among others. Inaugural summit of European political community is held in Prague. Luxury yacht of sanctioned Russian billionaire is anchored in Hong Kong waters. Welcome back to TVB News. The Nobel Peace Prize for 2022 has been announced in Oslo today. Berit Reiss-Andersen, chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, said the judges wanted to honor 3 outstanding champions of human rights, democracy, and peaceful coexistence. This year's Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to jailed Belarus rights activist Alice Bialyatsky, Russian Human Rights Organization Memorial, and Ukrainian Human Rights Organization Center for Civil Liberties. The Norwegian Nobel Committee said the Peace Prize laureates represent civil society in their home countries, adding they have for many years promoted the right to criticize power and protect the fundamental rights of citizens. The committee noted they have made an outstanding effort to document war crimes, human rights abuses, and the abuse of power. The prize carries a cash award of 10 million Swedish kroner. Leaders of most European nations met for the inaugural summit of the European Political Community in Prague, capital of the Czech Republic, on Thursday. The main topic of the discussion was Russia's war on Ukraine and the resulting security and energy crisis. Tracy Furness reports.
As the leaders of the European nations posed for a photo Thursday, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen was the only leader absent due to a crucial parliamentary debate at home. European leaders gathered to discuss security and energy emergencies plaguing them since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the summit via video link. Zelensky said Russia wants to redraw the borders to once again divide the world into zones of influence, destroying our common space of cooperation and development. Russia corrupts. It corrupts with the billions it earns from trading in energy resources. This is the Russian formula for war. British Prime Minister Liz Truss said that her attendance at the inaugural summit was not about moving closer to Europe, but about working with neighbours and allies.
What this is about working with all of our European partners to challenge Putin's appalling war in Ukraine, but also to work together on the issues that we all face. Huge energy costs, rising inflation, and also migration across our continent. So it's very important that we work with our neighbours and allies to face down Putin, but also deal with the issues we face.
Another key issue discussed was security within Europe, which French President Macron addressed. We need to protect our key infrastructures. We saw that just a few days ago with the attacks against Nord Stream 1. We have key infrastructures that can make us vulnerable, critical infrastructure which concerns the European Union and the other European countries, such as gas pipelines, cables, satellites. We need a European strategy to protect them, Macron said. The European leaders also approved an 8th batch of sanctions against Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine, but said implementing a price cap on Russian seaborne oil included in the package needs more work. The day ended with a roundtable dinner. Leaders of the European Union's 27 countries will meet Friday for an informal summit. A contentious issue could be how various nations view Germany's €200 billion energy support package. The EU leaders are also expected to work through differences over how to cap gas prices to contain soaring energy costs that are turbocharging inflation across the bloc. The next European Political Community meeting will take place in Moldova in the spring. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
French President Emmanuel Macron met UK Prime Minister Liz Truss on the margins of the European Political Community Summit in Prague. Truss referred to Macron as a friend after Downing Street's relationship with Macron deteriorated under former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Macron expressed cautious optimism that the EU and UK might be able to put their Brexit differences behind them.
I think having the UK being engaged in a lot of common initiatives, I think does make sense, both for the UK and for ourselves, because we do share the same continent. And we have a lot of challenges in common. If you take energy, if you take migrations, if you take geopolitics. So I think it's very useful.
Look, I work very, very closely with President Macron and the French government, and what we're talking about is how the UK and France can work more closely together to build more nuclear power stations and to make sure that both countries have energy security in the future.
Besides talking about the energy crisis in Europe, Truss and Macron suggested that a new agreement could be close on how to deal with small boat crossings in the English Channel, which have been bringing over record numbers of migrants in recent months. They also agreed to revive the annual summit between the two countries, with the next one to be held in France in 2023. As the war between Russia and Ukraine continues, thousands of Russians have fled the country to avoid military service after Moscow announced mobilization to bolster its forces. More from NBC News.
Tonight, more Russians fleeing Putin's war. Following that crush of traffic along Russia's borders, now 2 Russian men arriving in Alaska by boat, requesting asylum, saying they too are fleeing military service. On the battlefield, Ukrainian troops press their offensive, while Russia lashes back, once again targeting civilians. Ukraine saying a rocket attack killing at least 3 people in a residential building in Zaporizhia. While in Kyiv, USAID Administrator Samantha Power here to spearhead the effort to rebuild.
The challenges must be immense to rebuild a country while it's fighting a war.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of Build Back Better. It's interesting. You start to see this government, and really they've done this from the beginning, but increasingly walking and chewing gum at the same time.
Even during our interview, the sounds of war break through.
We have provided now more than $25 billion in a combination of military security assistance.
All of it coming after that startling report in the New York Times about this deadly car bomb attack in Russia back in August. The victim, Daria Dugina, the daughter of a prominent Russian nationalist. According to the report, U.S. intelligence agencies believe parts of the Ukrainian government authorized her assassination and fear it could widen the war.
NBC News has not confirmed the Times report, and tonight, a top Ukrainian official suggesting that Russia was behind the attack.
Back in Hong Kong, a mega yacht belonging to a Russian oligarch sanctioned by the West is currently anchored in Hong Kong. The government said it would not enforce any unilateral sanctions on the yacht or its owner. The super yacht, named Nord, belongs to Putin ally and Russia's third richest man, Alexei Mordashov. Currently anchored in waters off the shores of Qingyi, the luxury yacht sports a Russian flag on its side, as well as 2 helipads, a movie theater, and 20 rooms. With an estimated worth of $500 million, Nord left the far eastern Russian city of Vladivostok on Tuesday last week with the intention of heading to Vietnam. The giant vessel later changed course and arrived in Hong Kong on Wednesday. Since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Western authorities have seized dozens of mega yachts owned by Russian oligarchs. And that is the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.